High Administrator Du-hyun stood at the massive window of the Galactic Council's observation deck. His tall, silver-skinned figure reflected in the glass as he watched the blue planet below. Earth looked small from up here, but it had caught the Council's attention in an unexpected way. "Show me the Antarctic station again," he said to the room's computer. The view changed, zooming in on a tiny dot of human civilization in the endless white landscape. The research station looked simple, just a few buildings connected by covered walkways. Du-hyun couldn't understand why this place interested him so much. The station's main researcher, Dr. Jae-hyun, was outside again. The computer showed her walking through the bitter cold, checking weather equipment. The temperature was -40 degrees, but she moved with confidence in her thick red coat. Du-hyun watched as she fixed a broken sensor with nothing but a simple toolkit and what humans called duct tape. "Remarkable," he said softly. His people had watched humans for months now, and they still couldn't predict what these creatures would do next. Their technology was basic. They hadn't even mastered space travel yet. But somehow, they survived and even worked in conditions that would challenge the Council's best equipment. The door slid open behind him. "High Administrator, the latest reports are ready," said his assistant. Du-hyun turned to face her, his silver skin shifting slightly to show his interest. "What have we learned about their decision-making process?" "That's the problem, sir. Our AI can't understand it." She handed him a datapad. "Look at this morning's example. When their heating system had problems, Dr. Jae-hyun used something called a coffee maker to keep their sensitive samples warm. Our computers say this solution should not have worked, but it did." Du-hyun looked at the datapad, then back at the station. The Council had machines that could think faster than 1,000,000 humans combined. They had solved the mysteries of space travel, gravity control, and eternal life. But they couldn't understand why a human would use a drink-making machine to save scientific samples. "Get me Professor Na-young," he said. "If anyone can understand these humans, it's our best anthropologist." Later that day, Professor Na-young's silver face appeared on the main screen. She had studied 50 different alien species, but humans made her nervous. "High Administrator, I've reviewed the data. Humans don't follow logical patterns. They do things that our computers say are impossible." "Explain," Du-hyun said, sitting at his desk. "Yesterday, their backup generator failed. Instead of following standard emergency procedures, Dr. Jae-hyun's team created a new power source using parts from their vehicles. Our simulations show this should have failed, but it worked perfectly." Na-young's voice showed her confusion. "They call it common sense, but it defies our understanding of problem-solving." Du-hyun watched another video of the station. Dr. Jae-hyun was inside now, teaching her team how to modify their equipment for the coming storm. Her hands moved quickly, sure of every action, while she explained things in simple words. The humans nodded and smiled, understanding perfectly. But the Council's most advanced translation AI could not explain why her solutions worked. "We need to study them more closely," Du-hyun decided. "Professor Na-young, prepare for a direct observation mission. It's time we learned why the most primitive spacefaring race we've ever found can solve problems that our greatest minds cannot." As he ended the call, Du-hyun looked one more time at the small station on Earth. Dr. Jae-hyun was now drinking something hot from a cup, laughing with her team as they prepared for the storm. Such a simple scene, but it held a mystery that all the Council's technology couldn't solve. Maybe, he thought, that was exactly why it was so important. Professor Na-young sat in her observation pod, floating silently above the Antarctic research station. Her advanced cloaking technology made her invisible to human eyes and instruments. She had been watching Dr. Jae-hyun's team for 3 days now, and nothing made sense. The professor's silver fingers moved quickly over her computer screen as she recorded another puzzling event. Below, Dr. Jae-hyun was teaching a new team member how to fix frozen pipes. Instead of using the standard repair tools, she showed him how to use hot water and something called a hairdryer. "Impossible," Na-young muttered. She asked her AI to calculate the success rate of this method. The numbers came back instantly. According to their advanced science, this solution should fail. But as she watched, the pipes began working perfectly. Ne Young sent her daily report to High Administrator Do Hyun. Sir, the humans continue to defy our predictions. They solve problems in ways that break all known rules of efficient problem solving. When faced with a challenge, they often choose solutions that our computers rate as likely to fail or highly inefficient. Yet they succeed. The reply came quickly. Give me an example, Professor. Ne Young looked through her notes. This morning, their satellite communication system stopped working. Our AI calculated 127 possible solutions, ranking them from most to least effective. Dr. Jae-yun's team tried none of these. Instead, they turned the entire system off, waited exactly 10 seconds, and turned it back on. They call this rebooting. It worked immediately. She continued watching as the humans went about their day. In the station's main room, they were having what they called a brainstorming session. Dr. Jae-yun had gathered her team around a table with hot drinks and sweet foods. They were discussing ways to improve their research methods. Ne Young's eye recorded everything, trying to find patterns in their thinking. But every time it predicted what a human would suggest next, it was wrong. The humans made strange connections between unrelated things, jumped to conclusions that seemed random, and yet somehow reached solutions that worked. Their minds work in chaos, she wrote in her personal notes. They say things like "that reminds me of," and suddenly connect two completely different ideas. They used phrases like "worth a shot" and "let's see what happens" before trying solutions that have no logical basis. Yet they succeed more often than our most advanced probability calculations say they should. Later that day, Ne Young witnessed something that truly confused her. The station's main computer crashed. According to all her training, this required a complex repair process. Instead, Dr. Jae-yun asked her team, "What would your grandmother do?" The humans laughed. Another reaction Ne Young didn't understand. And one of them said, "Mine would say to check if it's properly plugged in first." They did this, found a loose connection, and fixed the problem in seconds. Ne Young sent an urgent message to Do Hyun. "Sir, I believe we have been approaching this wrong. We keep trying to understand human problem solving through logic and patterns, but they don't use either. They use something they call common sense, which seems to be a combination of experience, intuition, and random connections. Our AI cannot replicate this." As she finished her report, Ne Young watched Dr. Jae-yun prepare for the next day. The human was whistling, making musical sounds for no apparent reason, while she worked. She moved with complete confidence, despite having none of the advanced technology that Ne Young's people considered essential for survival. Perhaps, Ne Young wrote in her final note of the day, "Being advanced has made us blind to simple solutions. These humans don't need probability calculations or efficiency algorithms. They have something we lost long ago: the ability to trust their instincts." The storm arrived faster than anyone expected. Professor Ne Young watched from her observation pod as dark clouds rolled across the Antarctic sky. Her instruments showed wind speeds that would tear apart most structures. The temperature dropped far below what her people considered survivable. "They must evacuate," she reported to High Administrator Do Hyun. "My calculations show their station cannot withstand these conditions." But Dr. Jae-yun and her team did not evacuate. Instead, they began what they called storm preparations. Ne Young observed with growing concern as they moved quickly through their checklist. "First thing," Dr. Jae-yun told her team, "we need to protect the research samples. If we lose power, the freezers won't work." She looked around the room, thinking, "Let's move everything outside. It's actually colder out there than in our freezers anyway." Ne Young's eye immediately marked this as illogical. Moving sensitive equipment into a storm should not work. But the humans quickly built simple snow shelters for their samples, marking each location with bright flags. The wind grew stronger. The station's walls creaked under the pressure. Then, exactly as Ne Young's calculations predicted, the power went out. Emergency generators are damaged, one of the team members reported. Too much ice built up on them. Ne Young expected panic. Her people would have abandoned the station by now. But Dr. Jai Yun smiled and said something that made no sense to the alien observer. Time to get creative. The humans gathered in the main room, putting on warm clothes. Dr. Jai Yun drew a simple picture on a whiteboard. "Look," she said, "we have 3 problems. We need heat, we need light, and we need to keep our equipment running. Let's solve them one at a time." The team looked around the room. One person picked up an empty coffee can. Another grabbed some cooking oil. A third found some old newspapers. Ne Young watched in confusion as they turned these simple items into what they called emergency heaters. "This is how my grandfather kept warm during winter blackouts," one team member explained as they carefully lit the makeshift heaters. The room began to warm up. For light, they took apart their flashlights and connected the batteries differently, creating what they called mini lamps. They placed these around the station, using aluminum foil to reflect the light better. But the biggest surprise came when they needed to power their main computer. The evacuation helicopter was coming in 12 hours, but they had to send their coordinates. Dr. Jai Yun looked at their broken generator, then at their snowmobiles. "The engines," she said. "We can use them as generators." Ne Young's AI calculated a 98% chance of failure. The connections needed would be too complex, the power output too unstable. But she watched as the humans took apart their vehicles with simple tools. They connected wires, adjusted engines, and made what they called educated guesses. Within 2 hours, they had power. The computer worked, their location signal was strong, and the station was warm. "Impossible," Ne Young whispered. She sent all her data to Do Hyun. "Sir, they are surviving using methods that defy our understanding. They call it making do with what you have. But they are achieving results that our best emergency systems cannot match." The storm raged on. Ne Young's pod shook in the wind, its advanced stabilizers struggling. Below in their simple station, the humans gathered around their coffee can heaters. They were telling stories and laughing, seemingly unconcerned by the dangerous conditions outside. Dr. Jai Yun checked their makeshift systems one more time. "Not bad for a day's work," she said. "Anyone want some hot chocolate? I think we earned it." Ne Young made one final note. These humans don't just survive crisis situations. They face them with a calm confidence that comes from knowing they can solve almost any problem with whatever they have on hand. Perhaps this is why they have survived on their harsh planet for so long. They don't need perfect solutions. They just need ones that work. High Administrator Do Hyun called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. The large meeting room filled with silver-skinned beings, each taking their assigned places around the circular table. The wall screen showed images from the Antarctic Station's crisis. "Our observations of the humans have revealed something unexpected," Do Hyun began. "Hajun, please share your technical analysis." Hajun, the Council's lead technology expert, stood up. His silver skin shimmered under the room's soft light as he displayed the data from Professor Ne Young's observations. The humans survived a Class 4 storm using what they call improvised solutions, he said. "Our computers have analyzed their methods 100,000 times. According to our science, these solutions should not have worked, but they did." He showed the council a video of Dr. Jai Yun's team creating heaters from coffee cans. "Look at this. They combine simple items in ways our AI never predicted. When we try to copy their methods exactly, we fail. Something is missing from our understanding." A council member raised her hand. Perhaps their success was just luck. "We considered that," Hojun replied. "So we studied their history. Humans have been solving problems this way for thousands of years. They crossed oceans in wooden boats. They survived in deserts and frozen lands. They reached their moon using computers less powerful than our cleaning robots. Do-hyun watched the reactions around the table. The council members looked troubled. Their civilization had achieved perfect efficiency through advanced technology. They had not needed to improvise or make do for 10,000 years. There's more, Hejun continued. He showed new images on the screens. We found similar patterns in their everyday lives. When their vehicles break down, they often fix them with incorrect parts. When their tools break, they create new ones from unrelated items. Our simulations say these repairs should fail. Instead, they work better than expected. Professor Nayoung spoke next, joining the meeting through a holographic display. The humans call this ability thinking outside the box. They solve problems by making unexpected connections. When one solution fails, they try another, often choosing options our computers rate as highly improbable. How do they know which improbable solutions will work? Someone asked. They don't, Nayoung answered. They used phrases like worth a try or let's see what happens. They embrace uncertainty in a way our civilization has forgotten. Do-hyun stood up and walked to the main screen. It showed Dr. Jae-yun's team during the storm, gathered around their makeshift heaters, sharing warm drinks, and telling stories. We have discovered something important, he said. These humans may seem primitive, but they possess an ability we lost long ago. They can solve problems without perfect information. They can find solutions our computers cannot see. This may be more valuable than all our advanced technology. Hejun displayed one final set of data. We found something else in our investigation. The more advanced our AI becomes, the less it can understand human solutions. It's as if our progress has made us blind to simpler answers. The room fell silent as the council considered this idea. Their civilization had spent thousands of years removing uncertainty from their lives. They had replaced instinct with calculation, creativity with efficiency. Now they watched videos of humans surviving impossible situations with nothing but creativity and what they called common sense. We must learn more, Do-hyun decided. Hejun, expand your investigation. Study their history, their stories, their methods of teaching. Find out how they pass this ability to their children. We need to understand how they think, even if our computers cannot. As the meeting ended, Do-hyun looked again at the image of the Antarctic station. The humans had already repaired all the storm damage, using methods that seemed impossible. Perhaps, he thought, impossible was simply another problem waiting for a human solution. He sat alone in the council's research library, surrounded by screens showing human history. As the youngest researcher on Hejun's team, others often overlooked her ideas, but she had noticed something in the data that no one else had seen. She watched another video of Dr. Jae-yun's team from the Antarctic station. This time, they were fixing a broken radio with parts from an old toaster. According to all the council's knowledge, this repair made no sense. But Tahi saw something different. Computer, she said quietly, show me all examples of humans fixing things with incorrect parts. The screens filled with thousands of images. People fixing cars with household items. Farmers repairing tractors with old bicycle parts. Children building toys from broken electronics. Tahi's silver fingers moved quickly across her keyboard. Now show me what these solutions have in common. The computer worked for several minutes, but found no pattern. This was exactly what Tahi expected. She called Hejun immediately. Sir, I need to show you something important. Hejun arrived at the library looking tired. The investigation had frustrated him for weeks. What have you found, Tahi? We've been asking the wrong question, she said excitedly. We kept asking how humans know their strange solutions will work, but they don't know. That's what makes them special. She showed him the video of the radio repair. Look at their faces when they try something new. They're not following a plan. They're not calculating success rates. They're doing something our civilization stopped doing long ago. They're experimenting. Hejun watched the video carefully. But how do they choose which experiments to try? That's the amazing part, Tahi said. She displayed more videos on the screens. They use something called intuition. They make connections based on all their experiences, not just logical ones. When they see a broken radio, they don't think only about radio parts. They think about everything they know, everything they've seen or heard about. She brought up an image of a young human child playing with blocks. It starts when they're young. Human children don't learn by downloading information like we do. They learn by trying things, failing, and trying again. Every failure teaches them something new. Hajum's eyes widened as he understood. So their common sense isn't a type of knowledge. It's a way of thinking. Tahi finished. They embrace uncertainty. They're not afraid to try things our computers say will fail. And because they try impossible things, they sometimes succeed in ways we never imagined. They called High Administrator Do-hyun immediately. When he arrived, Tahi explained her discovery. She showed him how humans passed this ability to their children through play, through stories, through letting them make mistakes. Our civilization chose perfect efficiency, she explained. We removed uncertainty from our lives, but humans chose a different path. They kept their ability to think freely, to make unexpected connections, to learn from failure. Do-hyun watched the screens thoughtfully. This explains why our most advanced AI can't understand them. We programmed our computers to find perfect solutions, but humans know that sometimes an imperfect solution is exactly what you need. Tahi nodded excitedly. And there's more. The harder we try to calculate and predict their solutions, the more we miss the point. Their strength isn't in finding the right answer. It's in being willing to try wrong answers until they find one that works. As she finished speaking, a new message arrived from Professor Nae-young at the Antarctic station. Dr. Jae-hyun's team had just solved another impossible problem. They had fixed their broken satellite dish with a cooking pot and some wire. Do-hyun smiled. Tahi, your discovery changes everything. Perhaps it's time for our civilization to remember what it means to experiment, to guess, to learn from failure. Perhaps it's time we learned some common sense. The Galactic Council decided to conduct an unusual experiment. They chose a group of human children for their test, led by 12-year-old Minho. The council believed that young humans, with minds still learning and growing, might show them how common sense developed. Professor Nae-young set up the test in a large room at the Antarctic station. The council had created 5 problems that their most advanced computers could not solve. They made these problems look like simple games and puzzles, hiding their true purpose. Minho arrived with 4 other children. They had come to the station for what they thought was a special science camp. Dr. Jae-hyun watched from the corner, while hidden cameras recorded everything for the council to study. "Welcome, children," Dr. Jae-hyun said warmly. "Today we have some interesting puzzles for you to solve. You can work together, and there are no wrong answers. Just try your best." The first puzzle looked simple, a box that needed to be opened. The council's computers had tried 10 million combinations to unlock it. But Minho looked at it differently. "It reminds me of my grandmother's cookie jar," he said to his friends. "She always puts it up high, so we have to work together to reach it." The children quickly arranged themselves in a way that let them press all the box's sides at once. It opened immediately. High Administrator Do-hyun watched through the hidden cameras, amazed. "They solved it in 5 minutes, he said to Tahi. "They didn't calculate anything. They just remembered something similar." The second puzzle involved fixing a broken robot toy. The council's engineers had decided it needed complex repairs. But the children saw it differently. "Look," Minho said, "it's like when my tablet freezes." He turned the toy off, waited a few seconds, and turned it back on. The toy started working perfectly. Professor Nae-young made careful notes. "They keep finding simple solutions that our computers never considered," she reported to the council. The third puzzle was harder. It required moving water from one container to another without spilling a drop. The council's solution needed precise measurements and timing. But the children had a different idea. "We can freeze it," one girl suggested. Then it won't spill at all. They used the station's freezer, turned the water into ice, moved it, and let it melt again. The council's observers sat in stunned silence. The fourth puzzle involved organizing complex data. The council expected the children to struggle with this adult task. Instead, Minho suggested they turn it into a card game. Soon, the children had sorted all the information while playing and laughing. They make difficult things simple, Tahi observed. We make simple things difficult. The final puzzle was the hardest. It required finding a new way to generate energy using only safe common materials. The council's scientists had worked on this problem for years. Minho looked at the materials on the table. These look like the things we used in science class, he said. Remember when we made a battery from fruits? The children worked together, trying different combinations of materials. They failed several times, but kept trying new ideas. Within an hour, they had created a working energy cell, using methods the council had never imagined. They didn't understand why it worked. They just knew it did. Do-hyun ended the experiment early. They had seen enough. These children solved problems that our best computers could not, he told the council. They did it by remembering similar experiences, trying new things, and not being afraid to fail. This is how human common sense works. Tahi added one final note to her report. The children succeeded because they didn't know these problems were supposed to be impossible. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson humans can teach us. Nothing is impossible until you believe it is. 3 months after the children's experiment, the Antarctic Research Station looked very different. The Council had revealed themselves to Earth's governments, and now Dr. Jae-yun worked side by side with Professor Na-young in a new joint research program. The station's main laboratory combined human and alien technology. Simple human tools sat next to advanced alien computers. Professor Na-young watched with interest as Dr. Jae-yun used both to solve problems in new ways. Your computer says this experiment won't work, Dr. Jae-yun said one morning, looking at the alien screen. She held up a simple glass beaker. But I have a feeling it might. Should we try it anyway? Professor Na-young nodded. In the past, she would have trusted only the computer's prediction. Now she understood the value of human intuition. Let's see what happens, she said, using one of her favorite new human phrases. They were studying how to clean ocean water more effectively. The council's methods were advanced but used too much energy. Dr. Jae-yun suggested combining alien technology with simple filtering techniques she had learned from local fishermen. The fishermen use layers of sand and rocks to clean their water, Dr. Jae-yun explained. What if we add your energy field technology to enhance this natural process? The alien computers predicted failure, but when they tried the experiment, it worked better than either method alone. The water came out cleaner than the council's best systems could manage, using only a fraction of the energy. High Administrator Do-hyun visited the station to see their progress. He found the human-alien team gathering for what they called a brainstorming session. The sight still amazed him. Silver-skinned aliens sitting with humans around a table, drinking coffee and sharing ideas. We've made more progress in 3 months than we made in the last 100 years. Professor Na-young reported. The humans show us simple solutions we never considered. Then we use our technology to make these solutions even better. Dr. Jae-yun showed Do-hyun their latest projects. They had improved alien space engines using principles from human sailing ships. They had enhanced alien medical treatments by studying how human bodies naturally heal. Each discovery combined the best of both species. The secret is learning from each other, Dr. Jae-yun explained. Your people have amazing technology, but sometimes you forget to look for simple answers. We humans may have less advanced tools, but we're good at finding unexpected solutions. Professor Na-young agreed. Working with humans has taught us to think differently. We now know that the most efficient solution isn't always the best one. Sometimes a simple answer that mostly works is better than a perfect answer that's too complex. Do-hyun watched as the team started their next experiment. Dr. Jai Yun suggested an approach that seemed impossible according to alien science. But Professor Ne Young, who once would have dismissed such an idea, now smiled and said, "That's just crazy enough to work." The experiment succeeded, leading to another breakthrough. As they celebrated, Du Hyun realized something important. The council had wanted to understand human common sense, but they had gained something even better. They had learned to combine human creativity with alien technology, making both species stronger. Together, he wrote in his report, "We are discovering solutions that neither species could have found alone. The humans teach us to think freely and try impossible things. We teach them to enhance their simple solutions with advanced science. This partnership may be the greatest discovery either civilization has ever made." 1 year after their first observation of the Antarctic station, the Galactic Council gathered for a historic meeting. The Great Hall was filled with both silver-skinned aliens and human representatives. High Administrator Du Hyun stood at the podium, ready to present their findings to the combined assembly. The wall screen showed images from their year of study. Dr. Jai Yun's team surviving the storm, Min Ho and the children solving impossible puzzles, and the successful partnership between humans and aliens at the research station. "When we first discovered humans," Du Hyun began, "we thought we would study them as a primitive species. Instead, they have become our teachers. They showed us something we had forgotten: the power of simple solutions and creative thinking." He played a video of their latest achievement. The joint human-alien team had solved one of the galaxy's oldest problems: how to travel between stars without using massive amounts of energy. The solution came from an unexpected place. A human child asked why we didn't travel through space the way birds migrate on Earth. Du Hyun explained, "This simple question led us to discover natural space currents we had never noticed before. Now our ships can ride these currents just as birds ride the wind." Tahi, now the head of the new human thinking department, stepped forward to speak. "We tried for 10,000 years to solve this problem with pure technology. The humans solved it by watching nature and using common sense. This is why we created this new department, to preserve and study the human way of thinking." The screen showed their next project. Young Min Ho, who had grown taller over the past year, worked alongside alien scientists. They were teaching alien children how to play, experiment, and think creatively. The alien children were learning to combine their advanced knowledge with human-style problem-solving. Professor Ne Young shared the results of their continuing research. "We discovered that human common sense isn't just about solving problems. It's about being willing to try new things, to learn from mistakes, and to see connections that computers miss. These skills have made both our species stronger." She showed examples of their successes. Alien technology had become simpler and more reliable by following human design ideas. Human medicine had advanced by combining traditional remedies with alien science. Every field of study had benefited from their partnership. Dr. Jai Yun spoke next, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "The most important thing we learned this year is that no species has all the answers. The Council has amazing technology, but humans have something just as valuable: the ability to think differently. Together, we can solve any problem." Do Hyun concluded the presentation with an announcement. "Today, we established the first galactic school of human common sense. Here, both species will learn from each other. Aliens will learn to think creatively and trust their instincts. Humans will learn to enhance their natural abilities with advanced science." He looked around the hall at the gathered faces, both human and alien. 1 year ago, we couldn't understand why humans used coffee makers to save scientific samples. Now we know that their creative thinking, their common sense, is not a sign of primitive development. It is one of the most advanced abilities we have ever encountered. The assembly ended with a scene that would have seemed impossible a year before. Alien children played with human children in the hall, building impossible things with simple toys, solving problems in ways that made both species proud. Their laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound that promised a future brighter than either civilization had imagined alone.